Welcome back to part 2 of the Black Cat run. As before, we're using only items that can be acquired from the Black Cat. As such, we are using Assassin because it gives us the largest array of weapons to use from. In our weapons, Wounded Fury, that we just covered over, we don't use it. It kind of serves no purpose. It increases damage against the Seneschal, which we don't run into. As far as our armor goes, we also only have Black Cat attire, which is why we do not have a leg clothing piece, because the Black Cat sells none, nor do we have any jewelry, because the Black Cat also sells none of those. We do have a pawn, John here. He's a sorcerer. He's using the Evil Eyesight, a Black Cat weapon. He is also adorned in the same way. Black Cat stuff only. We have John exclusively because we do not have any magic damage. None of the Black Cat weapons have magic damage. Although the Wounded Fury makes it sound like you would be able to damage ghosts with it, it actually does not. As far as abilities, Windmill, Full Moon Slash, standard bow abilities. As far as augments go, we have Mettle is kind of the interesting one, which increases the amount of white health that we get when we take damage. Recoverable Health is that. That'll work in hand with our Repeller Bow. And then we have Acuity, which is frankly just an error. It's just an error. Don't do that if you're doing your own run. And then for dagger abilities, we have kind of standard assassin. We have Snakebite, which I love. Good CC on that. Not great damage, but good CC. And then Masterful Kill, which is obviously a brilliant move. And then our shield, we don't really use the abilities for, other than shield summoning. Starting with the Rotwood Depository for the final ward. Final wing of Bitterblack. We have the Saurian configuration. Saurian configuration is kind of nice. Ghosts are terrible. As evidenced at the end of the last video, they just take forever. Because we have to rely on John. And that's painful. Saurians are much nicer. We can deal the damage ourselves. We also don't have living armor. So not only do we not have the ghosts, we don't have the living armor to deal with. Very fortunate turn of events here. I don't know if we stacked up the Force Hatchet super well. For those of you who do not know, when you hit things with Force Hatchet, it stacks a buff for you, stacking up to 3 times. The first hit will give you 1 stack. I think you have to hit it 4 more times to get a second stack, and then like another 5 times, something like that, to get the third. And it's very effective. Here you see the Repeller Bow's ability to heal us, or at least the recoverable health. That combined with the Mettle augment is why, despite getting hit a lot on this run, we still have probably like, what, 90% of our health? It's definitely more than you'd expect. I had probably never run with the Mettle augment before this run. I was very impressed with how much recoverable health it provides. It is a far more useful augment than I thought. Obviously, it's exceptionally useful with the Repeller Bow, but even on a different vocation, if I was playing a vocation where I had like a mage pawn, for example, and I was willing to let Anodyne heal me, Anodyne can't heal past your white health, normally. So having the Mettle augment on honestly wouldn't be bad on something like a fighter with a mage pawn. It's kind of something to consider. Here, I backtracked because the Elder Ogre could have spawned back there. It didn't, obviously, so it's more likely that it spawns in here. And I'm just a little bit wary of that. So you see I kind of back off here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run away, let the goblins stop casting at me, and then what I'll do is either run in there and kill the goblins really quick, or run in to get the Elder Ogre to spawn and then run out. It's going to depend on what happens, really. But this room's always a little painful. Just because there's a lot of things that can go wrong with this room, because there's so many casters, and it's very easy to get hit by something, whether it be an Ingle or a Frigger, sorry, or even a Levin, especially since we have a pawn. If he gets hit by Levin and I'm close to him, it might just chain over to me. We are standing in water as well, so lightning chains better, and so does ice, or rather ice freezes us, guaranteed. So we're going to, it's just a little, it's not necessarily difficult, but it's a lot more hectic. It's a lot easier for things to go wrong. So let's see what happens. Elder Ogre spawn, so we immediately backtrack. The goblins will stop casting at us in this room after a couple of casts, but the Elder Ogre will literally chase us through the whole dungeon to the other door. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep pulling the Elder Ogre backwards until we get more or less free of the goblins casting at us. Unfortunately, because we have John's like staying kind of close to where the goblins are, so they might cast at John for a bit, but we'll see what happens. There, I was conserving some stamina. So there, I didn't grab him. And part of that is because when you grab him, you'll take a little chip of stamina damage, and that... Oh, here's the Mighty Bend we get to showcase, knocking him out of that, or her out of that. A second one to knock it down. John, just throwing that crate, just ruined it. We talked about that in the last video, part 1. We talked about how we wanted to clear out explosive barrels because John tends to throw them and then stagger us out of all of our stamina. And that's precisely what just happened. We had just set up the Elder Ogre to be able to give it some nice damage, and then John just ruined it. So that's unfortunate. If I was smart, I'd shoot the other one in the corner so that John doesn't, but John can't leave well enough alone. We'll see what happens. Fortunately, while the Elder Ogre's on the ground, we do incredible damage. When it's standing, not so much, but when it does its drop kick and whatnot, we do great damage. I actually want it to do its drop kick. Mighty Bend there wouldn't be bad either, because we could knock it down if we use Mighty Bend at the right time. But it is tricky. We're too late. If we had gotten it like maybe half a second prior, we would have knocked him over. Her over, whatever. John being on it's actually pretty good, because John will hold it still. We'll just shoot it in the knee, apparently. Alright, there you go, one to the face. But yeah, if we get the Ogre on the ground, it's a pretty easy kill. And now, with most of the threats gone, we can run in here and hit them. Oh, that was very close. I almost walked into the Ingle. Not the cast itself, but there's lingering splash damage after the cast, and if I walked through the doorway, I wouldn't have gotten hit by the Ingle head-on, but I would have walked into the splash damage, which does deal damage, and I would have lost all my stacks as well as all of my stamina. So that was actually kind of close. That was a very quick reaction for me to step to the side. The Forgotten Hall. Obviously, we have 2 liches here. I'm trying to shoot the back one because I know that after he catches on, we're going to lose a lot of damage because preemption bonus is going to go away. And we can't really stack the Force Hatchet very well here because, well, there's nothing for us to reach. I don't want to move too far from the first part of this room, however, because if I go to the other end of the room, there's actually Hellhounds. So I don't want to have the Hellhounds active. Unfortunately, we don't have a good setup for stacking the Force Hatchet before the Hellhounds. So we are going to run into a bit of a problem there, but that's you know, we'll have to deal with that in a minute or so. Now here's for the Hellhounds. We shouldn't deal great damage, but if we get preemption bonus off, it should be enough to kill them. Which is good. As you saw there, some of the circumstances we weren't hitting all of our arrows, and so they wouldn't die. You'd see like most of their health bar with a Fivefold, which Fivefold generally is just going to shred. Here I'm turning off my lantern because I don't want the Hellhounds to see me. I don't want the casters to see me either. The Hellhounds are by far more dangerous to me. We can engage the casters from range. The Hellhounds can engage us from range, and it's harder to avoid. Because if a Hellhound, for example, shoots the balcony below us, even if it doesn't hit us, it'll stagger. The damage will go through the ground. So they don't actually have to land the shot on us, but if they land the shot on the ground or the railing next to us, we'll still get hit. So that's why I focus the Hellhounds there first. Generally, I would prefer the casters, but it doesn't really matter here. The most dangerous attack at the moment that these guys can do is Maelstrom. After that, they can try and shoot me with their staff, just like regular basic attacks. But usually they'll have too much distance and they'll actually like disappear before they hit me. Here I'm going to switch to the Griffinbane. That's because Stragoy's weak to the Griffinbane. We probably only landed one single arrow there, and it did, I don't know, but like a fifth of its health on a Stragoy, right? That's something that's decently strong. So, not bad. Now that we don't have to worry about everything else, we can put the Repeller Bow back on like nothing happened. Leapworms are going to fall here, so we run past so that we can turn around and shoot them. I am not... That was exceptionally close. I'm not sure... I'm not certain as to why we're actually getting the unaware foes healing indicator from the Repeller Bow on those shots. But, whatever. I was prepping a Fivefold there because with this configuration, death can spawn. And obviously it didn't. And going through that door is generally the trigger for it. If death doesn't spawn earlier than that. It didn't. I think at this point during this run, I hadn't done the Assassin no-hit run yet. And I was still looking for good rings. The rings I would prefer to have would be like Eagle Sight and Perfect Kill. Both of those are really good moves. There I waited a moment and then hugged that wall, because if I get hit by the debilitation, I don't care about the health loss. I don't want to get hit by the debilitation because it'd drain all of my stamina. Another option would have been to take the weapon off and switch to something else and just like jump over it or something, but it's okay.
This place is sure death without a lantern. It's too dark.
Here, we're gonna try and stack up the Force Hatchet on these spiders.
If we dispel the dark with this.
We only have 2 stacks, we don't have all 3.
A lantern serves well in the dark.
We have... This is a little bit nerve-wracking because the ghosts we can't do anything to. John has to do things to them. The ghosts can hit us pretty easily. That should be our 3rd stack. So we should be fully stacked here. So now I'm just going to attempt to avoid the ghosts as best I can while John deals with them.
is a troubling foe.
Unfortunately, the luck we had in the Rotwood Depository has run out here in the Bloodless Stockades because this configuration, despite there not only has these two ghosts, which is a bit of an annoyance, although they're the easy ghosts, so they're not that annoying. But we also are going to have 2 living armor, which is a bit problematic, considering John's the only one that can deal damage in Phase 2. And having watched John deal damage, it's not great. But we do have a strategy for that. It's going to help. Here, there are 10 bats. You can shoot all of them before they're active. You need to have the Elite Lantern so that you can actually see them. Or obviously if you're like a mage or a magic archer, it'll auto-target them. But with a bow, you can just shoot them. Although they are hard to see. But if you learn where they are, it's not that bad. You're just looking for like minute wiggles for like those last 2. Because they only like show the very tip of their wings and like their nose. But if you watch my Ranger no-hit run, we actually... I want to say I slow it down on that run and put circles around it too so that you guys can see it.
Will not fear for ambush if we dispel the dark with this. Soak to the bone, living armor. I cannot take much more.
Definitely a good start for John. But yeah, here we're gonna rely on our bow to do this. Next, we're gonna put on a shield because it's going to be the best thing we can do. We have no magic damage, so our hope here is that we maintain the attention of the living armor long enough for John to deal damage to it. Unfortunately, every time John deals damage to it, it's going to go towards John. John also, as he already has, is probably going... I was going to say is also probably going to pull the other living armor, because pawns are really bad at avoiding the others. So I have little to no doubt. That is just our deflect damage, by the way, with the Force Hatchet fully stacked up. That is how good it becomes. And that we don't have gloves that are increasing shield damage. We don't have the Bloody Knuckles, which even if we did, like, we couldn't use the Force Hatchet with the Bloody Knuckles anyway. You only get the benefit if you don't have the sword in your hand. But that deflect damage is... That was somewhere close to, like, what, 40, 45 maybe % of a health bar on living armor with just the deflect. It's quite good. Here I'm just trying to get its attention. I know it's not going to deal any damage, but I will switch back to the Brutish Wall. What the Brutish Wall does is it takes our magic defense stat and converts it to physical defense stat. So we get 0 magic defense, but we have like even higher physical defense. There we're using the shield drum move to try and get the attention. It does work. It does get his attention. Unfortunately, it's not great because it doesn't maintain their attention. So now that John's hit him, it's going to turn its attention to John, and I have to like re-aggro its attention. So John's only ever allowed to get 1 hit in at a time. So we hope that it's a good one. Combustion's a great move for John to use. But he doesn't always use combustion. A lot of times he'll try and like silence them and things like that, which makes it even more tilting. That was a perfect block, you can tell, because my stamina didn't go down at all. But that shield bash, you just can't resist. When it hits you, it'll always stagger you like that. Fortunately, it doesn't get rid of our buff with the Force Hatchet. But you do have to, I think you have to get a perfect block, not a imperfect. I don't think that's true. I think if we get an imperfect block, we maintain a Force Hatchet as well. However, if I had an imperfect block, I would have lost a bunch of stamina. We are playing on hard mode, so we do lose a lot more stamina for things than on normal. But,
Over there, living
you know,
armor.
comes with
I will
territory.
protect you.
Fortunately, John's being much more effective in this than he was in the ghost fight in the Forsaken Cathedral. He's already dealt the majority of the health bars that he needed to. Unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily mean he's doing well. Miasma, for what it's worth, is quite a good move. The problem is the Living Armor can block Miasma very effectively a lot of the time. So what ends up happening is the Miasma is blocked for like a good portion of time, and then it becomes unblocked, and so it becomes a little bit awkward. But you know, whatever. All right, that one's coming back, so I'm not going to aggro the one in the corner, even though I'd like to deal damage to him, but that's okay.
I'll aim for the head.
Gosh, that riposte damage is tasty. Because of this ramp, it's very difficult for us to deal damage to him even after we get the stagger. Generally, you can just hit them. That was a big hit. I think we just went from 2,700 health to 4,000 or 400. So what is that? That's 2,300 damage-ish. That's huge. And lost all of our stamina for it. That's a big deal. Because of that, and we don't have anything else to hit in this room that we can get stacks on. Well, I guess we could get stacks on the one that's not dead yet, but I don't know how valuable that would be. I guess we could hit those things too. But I would expect that I would opt to choose to use daggers with the sword instead, because it gives us the opportunity to dodge roll if I need to as well. Unfortunately, we do not get predation, or we don't get a hit when we use the bow here, even if, you know, it does pull up the health bar. So it is kind of useless for us to do that, but it's whatever. Hopefully John will kill this one. I feel like that was very fast reaction for me. I don't know. Like, by the time I barely registered that our lantern was going out, I had already paused the screen. That was pretty quick. I don't know if I'm just lagging today with my brain, or if that was actually as fast as I think it was. I guess I was on edge after getting hit once. Especially for so much. That move I do not want to try and block. It is way too scary. Nice. One more. I have no idea how that first one didn't land. Okay, now that we got the living armor's attention again. Unfortunately, from here out, we're going to struggle to get health back with the Repeller Bow. Ooh, excuse me. Most entities in this room are already aware of our presence, or we can't hit them. So, we can't hit them with the Repeller Bow. For example, the Vile Eyes might not be aware of us, but if we shoot them because they get a barrier, we don't deal any damage, so we don't get the Repeller Bow benefit, which is annoying. What's interesting there is that John hit it with the move that actually didn't deal any damage, and it still changed its target. Kind of odd. But that's okay. You'll note I'm not going very far into the room here. I can't believe we missed that one too. The reason I'm not going very far out of this area, basically past these columns of this room, Because if I go forward, there's a potential... Wow. Isn't that lucky? I don't know... Oh, we took off the sword. No, we didn't take off. We took off the bow. I'm sorry. We took off the bow. We actually talked about this in the first run, or the first video. When you take off the bow, it doesn't get rid of the healing. We obviously aren't healing because we don't have the bow equipped, but if I put the bow back on, it'll continue to heal me. It's a really cool interaction. It probably doesn't last if we go into another room, mind you. I bet if I walked into this Sparyard to Scant Mercy, or I guess if we backtracked to the Arisen's Refuge or the Forgotten Halls, we'd lose it, but in the same room, if I switch back to the Repeller Bow, we are hunky-dory. We just start getting our health back again. It's really cool. Here I'm being super defensive. I wasn't even going to attempt a perfect block there. I was just holding it up because the last thing I want to do is die because I try and get a perfect block off when it's only going to shear off like the tiniest amount of health anyway. If anything. Now here I should put the Repeller Bow back on and we can see my health continue to grow. Look at that. It's absolutely magical. I love it. And it's an interesting interaction. It's not what I would have expected. It's like they're tracking that information. That's unfortunate that the living armor showed up right there to block it, but that's okay. I got it anyway. Anyway, it suggests that they're actually tracking whether you have the bow equipped or not. So here, because I want to keep the bow out, because I want the health back, what we're going to do is we're just going to use Masterful Kill to evade his attacks instead of the shield. Until I'm full health, of course. Because the thought of losing more health is, you know, not something I'm eager to work with. Plus, we just have one hit left. There's a little more we can do anyway, right? So, now that we're full health, we'll switch back to the shield. The reason we switch back to the shield is specifically because in this phase we need to keep its attention, and the best way to do that is using Shield Drum. Unfortunately, John's trying to silence the living armor, so that's actually doing nothing to help us, but, you know, whatever. And after all of those hits, we're still only missing like a sixth of our health. I want to say we have like 3,100 health or so we're missing about 600 health. I guess that's about a fifth, actually, not a sixth. But even still, like, it's crazy how good the Mettle Augment is, because we've not done a very good job of avoiding damage in this run. We've gotten hit a lot. Hell, that last Repeller shot healed us from, what, I think we had 300, maybe 400 health. I think it was 400 health. From 400 health to 25. That's pretty considerable. Not that I think it just keeps going until you get hit or something like that. But even still, like, that's honestly a fantastic thing. I've never used the Repeller Bow or the I don't generally utilize the Black Cat weapons. I do occasionally, but not very often. I had no expectations of them being this good. Or at least this useful. They aren't, like, strong. Do not get me wrong. We're not bulldozing this run because the Black Cat weapons are powerful, other than, of course, the Horse Hatchet. But it has its own drawback, right? You can't get hit. But I was surprised at the utility of all of the others, except for the, what's called Wounded Fury, the sword that hits enemies beyond mortal ken, which is literally just the Seneschal. Absolutely useless weapon. Seneschal is not a difficult enemy to kill. So, that being the use of the other sword is honestly an absolute travesty. But, nice one, John. But, yeah, the... Ooh, that's a nice hit. Nice one. But yeah, the healing on the Repeller Bow, fantastic. The bonus damage on the Griffinbane, the Saurian Bane daggers, fantastic. The Force Hatchet, really good. The shields are kind of whatever. They're not bad, do not get me wrong. The shields are not bad, but they don't really do as much as I would hope. Just because, like, sacrificing all magic defense for physical defense, okay. Sure. Increased damage to beasts, okay. Sure. But, like, you're not using a shield necessarily for those as a damage source. So, I don't know. Whatever. Dowsing Spikes are also similarly annoying. They're just not necessary. I mean, if you are going through the game the first time and you're trying to examine nooks and crannies in, like, the overworld in Francis, like, maybe, but it just doesn't seem overly useful outside of that. Him holding her down is quite valuable because we were able to get that huge churn off. Like, we just did half of its health while it was knocked down there because John managed to grab it. Now, if I get through this health bar, it'll enrage. So I want a couple things. I want to either get it facing me, which is why we kind of stopped for a moment, or I want it knocked down. This is fine. I was hoping it would go back to the defensive curl. So here, John is on its face and it's doing that attack. It'll finish that attack before it enrages, which gives me ample time. Like I said, I want it to be either facing me or knocked down. The reason for that is I know with Force Hatchet fully stacked in 5-folds, I can burn through it while it's standing still. It stands still for about 3 seconds while it's enraging. That is more than enough time for us to wail through the last 3-4 health bars. I think it's 4 health bars, yeah. 4 health bars remaining is when it does that phase transition. But yeah, it's more than enough time for us to accomplish that. So that's what we were waiting for. This room, Sparyard, Scant, Mercy, it's a run killer. It doesn't matter what the run is. It's often the run killer. Looks like we have double Fire Drake. Frankly, I don't know that any of the configurations are really that much worse than the others because they all are okay. I will say that it's easier to stack the sword on Double Frost, because Double Frost generally will stand still at the start of them because they cast. But it becomes really frustrating and hectic because they will do, obviously, a lot of casts and a lot of spells and area denial, and it becomes really awkward. But we do such good damage to them that it doesn't really matter. Realistically, as an assassin, we're not overly concerned about which enemy we fight. What I will say is that we don't do quick damage against these ones because every time they fly into the air, they can stagger us, and so we can't really. We have to stand in very specific spots so that when they launch back into the air, we don't get staggered by the winged flags, because we have to full moon slash it every time. And that is tricky. If we get these both in positions that we like, which right now, one's kind of in a nice spot, the other one's kind of meh. But if we get both of these in positions that we like, we can actually start dealing some decent damage. But until then, we're just going to have to chip at them a little bit. Which, again, run killer, this is a fight that requires a considerable amount of patience. And I'm likely to just get like 1 or 2 shots off ever while doing this, because we have to full moon slash whenever it launches into the air, shoot it, and then try and put a little bit of damage in before the next one flies into the air, which I have to full moon slash, and then full moon slash this one as well. Alternatively, I can hop down here, which is what we'll probably opt for most of this fight. Shoot these guys, climb up, shoot that one once, hop down. It'll speed up the process a little bit. Okay, it looks like we can get 3 of them off. That's nice. It'll speed it up just a touch, but it's not crazy. Once one of them's dead, we can be a lot more efficient with our movement, though, because we only need to deal with one. We don't have to worry about two of them potentially staggering us out of all of our damage by staggering us and when it launches into the air and ruining our buff. Here I climbed up before shooting because I wanted to be in position before it fell, but the dragons, their bodies kind of blocked our line of sight, so we couldn't actually get a shot off in the way that we wanted. Like I said, we only need to be off of the balcony for the first, or for them launching into the air. They don't breathe fire at us for a couple seconds, so once both of them are up, we can get up here and position ourselves as nicely as we like. We generally are going to have a good amount of time. Especially since a shot to the heart will knock it down immediately. If not, it's only like 3 shots to the face. So if we miss the heart, we're probably going to hit the face. It's generally risk-free, but again, you have to be patient. You have to be consistent about climbing up, climbing down, and doing that. Once the first one's dead, it becomes much easier because we don't have like bodies interfering with each other. We don't have 2 that we need to worry about. But it is not a terrible fight. Like I said, Assassin, we don't really have too many problems with most of our fights. It's really just how do we do them. The hard part is always going to be stacking up the Force Hatchet versus, you know, actually getting attacks off and things like that. The Assassin's very good at being able to dish out the damage, but you just gotta get to the strategy portion of that first. I know he's low, so I just wanted to kill him there, but we failed to do so. And we're not going to land that shot either. I don't even know why I climbed up to try, frankly. I have no idea why this other dragon is so keen on hitting my pawn, by the way. The pawns never hit it once. Meanwhile, I've shot it a million times. For whatever reason, it's still very keen to hit the pawn. I am surprised we landed that shot. But with that, we only have 1 dragon alive, so we can focus it quite efficiently in comparison. We do good damage. Like, we're doing about, what is that? I don't know, maybe 60% of a health bar per Lyncean sight while it's on the ground. It's not bad. Yeah, see? We're kind of able to churn through. Here, I'm choosing to hop down instead of Full Moon Slash. We could stay up there in Full Moon Slash, and it would make it slightly faster because I don't have to climb back up. However, we're mostly going to want him to move into the same position over and over again anyway, so that he don't have that circumstance where it falls on top of the pillar. But also, I'm already using Lyncean Sight to deal the damage. I don't know why it's so focused on my pawn. My pawn has done nothing to this dragon the whole time, but it does bother me. Like, it bothers our ability to aim shots at it adequately. I don't know. But anyway, the Lyncean Sight is not a super cheap ability. It's not the most expensive, but for 1 shot at a time, it's kind of expensive per swing, basically, per attack. And if I was doing that and using Full Moon Slash to dodge the wing flaps, like, we're just going to go through a lot of stamina for no reason when we could just climb down, climb up, waste like an extra second every single time, and be done with it. I have no idea what's wrong with our dragon here, why it's so intent to hit the pawn. Like, I think that's the only attack I've seen the pawn actually land on the dragon in yet. I don't know, whatever. Hey, it focused us for the last one. Nice. I would have been annoyed if it focused our pawn, because it probably would have been much harder to land that shot. Now, we can have a carrion beast spawn. I don't remember. This room has 3 configurations, so I'm always a little bit lost as to which configuration has which things. But we can either have a cursed dragon or death spawn. I want to say this one's a cursed dragon. I think death is only on the double... Actually, I think death is on the one of each. I have no idea. I would have to look it up, honestly. But that's the only room that has 3 configurations. Fallen City, looking right there in that corner, we don't see an eliminator. That tells me we have the nicer configuration, which is living armor. The reason this is the nicer configuration is there are just fewer enemies in the room. If we had eliminators, there would be 8 eliminators, 3 living armor at the very end, and then 2 dragons with a cursed dragon as a potential spawn as well. This one has 1 dragon, granted it's the stronger variant of the wyvern, the thunder wyvern. Whereas when we have 2, it's the Grancis version, so they're very easy to kill. And in fact, kind of satisfying as an assassin, because you can use Lycian Sight and absolutely belt them. But at the end of the day, there's just so many more eliminators that's frustrating. This configuration has only 3 eliminators at the end and 3 eliminators, or 3 living armor for the city. So we literally just have 5 fewer living armor, or 5 fewer eliminators on this configuration, as well as 1 less dragon. While the other one can have a cursed dragon spawn, this one has death, which is also not a very dangerous enemy for us. We can stack our... If we don't have the buff stacked up, we can stack it up very easily and efficiently with on death. With, you know, a great whirlwind. Great windmill, rather. It's not very difficult. Whereas... That was a lot of stamina. Hey. Nice. So, like, if death spawns, like, we're gonna have a pretty good time. Although death spawning is always a little bit nervous because, you know, pawns are very bad at evading death. Usually. As before, because we're on these stairs, we're gonna have a hard time actually hitting him. If we're below him on the stairs, we can hit him. If we're above him on the stairs, we kind of can't. From the front, I mean, specifically. That, I could have just gotten behind him and used Full Moon Slash to evade it in 5 frames, which is generally what I would like to do. But I wasn't confident that I can move all the way around. And if I don't get all the way around him, there's potential that he uses Full Moon Slash, or there's potential that my Full Moon Slash is blocked by him, which takes him out of his stance immediately, and then he can retaliate. So I could have gotten hit that way. So it's just a little bit safer to back off and let him do his thing. So you can actually get them caught in a loop where they keep hopping up and down on that. I don't think I do that here. I do it sometimes for certain things. Like, for example, we use that on the fighter run. I don't know that I'm going to do that here because it doesn't have as much valuable benefit, because we can't deal damage to it very well. Because John has to deal the damage. So even if I get it stuck in that loop and it's not able to do anything to us, I might not take any advantage of it because John just doesn't do the right thing in response. So I probably don't do that as much, but we'll see.
Physical attacks no longer work. I will protect you, Arisen. Physical attacks no longer work.
as I mentioned before, every time John deals damage to a living armor, I have to re-acquire its attention using shield drum. Shield drum is, I'm pretty sure, the only ability we use on the shield during this run. We do have swift response, which is a pretty cool ability, as well as, or sorry, not swift response, swift castle, as well as enhanced response, which are both actually pretty cool abilities. But I don't think we ever use them, simply because there's just better things to do.
This object, 'tis cursed.
Safer things to do. Although enhanced response is pretty good if you're a climber, because you can get up to places you would like a little bit easier. So, if I was smart, which it doesn't look like I am as smart as I'd like to be, but if I was smart, I would have moved in a different way so that I can shoot this guy without him knowing that I was there. And, well, I say if I was smart. I don't know if that's the issue, honestly. Because our pawn isn't smart. So what'll happen if we attempt to do that is generally our pawn will ruin our strategy. But what I was going to say is if I was smart, I'd move to a position where the living armor can't access us, and that allows me to keep shooting it without it moving. The value of that is it won't enter a combat stance, meaning we get predation bonus damage. Sorry, not predation, preemption bonus damage every single shot. The reason that's valuable is because it's obviously a little bit faster DPS, but the amount of damage that you deal on the hit, like the amount of physical damage you deal on the hit that transitions the living armor from being physically vulnerable to magically vulnerable, is the full amount of damage of the ability you use during that transition. So if you whittle down the living armor's health to just before half, and then you do, in our case, our biggest move, which would be Lyncean Sight, then you basically cheat how much magic damage you have to do, which is useful for us because we don't deal with magic damage very well. In fact, we don't deal any at all. John has to deal it, and he doesn't do magic damage very well just because he doesn't attack consistently enough to do anything. Like there, he's messing around with rocks. Okay, finally he's casting, hopefully Miasma. Looks like it. Man. What is nice about Miasma is if he chases us through, we can get him to run back into it sometimes, which is kind of cool. But yeah, ooh, very useful, John. Now he's attempting to silence the living armor, which I think can be silenced, possibly. They only cast one spell though, and it's Stone Forest, Stone Grove, so not overly useful. In fact, Stone Grove is actually a really good move for him to use because it leaves him vulnerable at the end of the cast. That being said, it would probably kill John, so you know, it's kind of a mixed bag on that one, but John dies at everything anyway. Question's nice. He actually had a couple hits in there that weren't blocked, so that's good. It's a pain in the ass trying to get this guy's attention every time. But yeah, if you go and look at our Ranger run, we actually make use of that preemption damage to transition the living armors with as little health as possible for the magic phase, as often as we can. So we do it 3 times in this room configuration, or in this room regardless of configuration, and it's noticeable. On that one, I think we're using Comet Shot. Actually, we might be using Reaper Arrow for that one. I don't remember. It's been too long. But it is a valuable thing to know, because it can, if you are a vocation that has decent physical damage but not very good magic damage, you can basically reduce the amount of hits you have to deal with magic damage by just using a big move on the transition. quite satisfying. I hope that's like an English. Okay, Commission is
I
fast
learned
enough.
a new way to fight Burial.
I was afraid Commission would take too long and he'd move, and he started to, but
It is cursed.
he didn't move in a big enough way to matter. So now that we have 2 down, there's a couple things we can do. We could try and pull the 3rd one, which might be the route I take. If I do that, I should have my lantern turned off, which it is. Alternatively, at this point, I think we were still looking for Bitterblack weapon 3s. Which is why you see me checking these chests. This is before we did the Assassin no-hit run. And it does look like we're going to pull the Living Armor. Alternatively, if I didn't want to pull the Living Armor, I could try and go around the Living Armor by going up the balcony and going across the roofs. When we do that, we can get to a point where the Living Armor doesn't aggro, but we can aggro the dragon to deal with the dragon, because sometimes it's hard to aggro the Living Armor without the dragon. We opt for the Living Armor instead of the dragon, though, because we have a pawn. And the pawn is exceptionally terrible at not getting the Living Armor to notice it. In fact, a lot of times, if you try and do something like that and you haven't killed the first 2 Living Armors, he'll often aggro the 3rd, or all 3 Living Armors, instead of 0. Because you can go and fight the dragon first if you'd like, by just using the rooftops, without fighting any of the Living Armor, and then backtrack to kill all the Living Armor. I often do that solo, because the dragons are just annoying to me. But with the pawns, like I said, they have a tendency to aggro the entire room if you try and use like the parkour to get to a different spot, and it's just dreadful. So we'll play it safe. We'll hit this guy this way, and then we'll deal with the dragon afterwards. I've managed to maintain my sword buff the whole time, which is good, because I want that sword buff for our dragon fight. Having to buff the sword during the dragon fight isn't terrible, because it's actually pretty easy, because this dragon's just going to fly into the air, and then we knock it down, and then we, you know, after we knock it down, we're going to hit it while it's on the ground. So it's not very difficult to actually stack the sword in that fight, but we still want it fully stacked, because it'll allow us to knock him down a lot easier, is really the big thing. We shouldn't have to use Mighty Bend to knock him down, whereas if we don't have it stacked, we'll probably have to. Hopefully I maintain it. I genuinely don't recall. It's been too long since I've done this run. But yeah, hopefully we have a good rest of the fight, and we can have 3 Living Armor fights that went well. Doesn't usually happen. Damn, John, that was a good hit, and it's tragedy that it didn't finish. If John had literally just used a light attack or a heavy attack on him right there as he walked past, that would have been game. There we go. Commission will win the day anyhow. So now, for the rest of the run, the only things we have left are the 3 eliminators at the end, which are very easy to avoid before you want to engage them. And we have a bow, so we can engage them one at a time, which is probably what we'll elect to do, simply because it gets hectic. And John is, you know, tricky. So the dragon noticed us because, one, we have the lantern on and we're sprinting. It's just really easy for enemies to notice us with both of those conditions. I don't know if our lantern was on and we were walking, he wouldn't have noticed us, or if we were sprinting with the lantern off, if he would have noticed us, but both of those are pretty easy for him to notice. Hopefully John doesn't get launched over the cliff with his breath. On a number of our practice runs, John got launched off of the cliff with his breath, or from the breath attack, which is goofy. There I only shot it once because I know that when I break the heart, it's going to stand up. The only things that I'm really nervous about happening are the wing flaps when it stands up, as well as if we break a horn or the wings, if he roars. The dragon's roar also will stagger me unless I use iframes, so I need to be ready to use a full moon slash for both of those attacks. It's kind of funny how I got caught on that tiny balcony and then slid afterwards. The hitboxes of where these dragons land sometimes are goofy. I like how we've also done like 90% of the damage that this dragon has taken, and it's still just enraptured with our pawn. I don't know. That's it. That's it for the dragon. Death technically still can spawn, like we said, but we're not really overly worried about that. If we hadn't had our sword stacked up, we could also use our sword on the corpse of that dragon before it actually decays and goes away, because it still has a hitbox, and you can actually stack up the Force Hatchet with that ability. Also, if you're using a holy weapon and you want the healing back, you can get health back by hitting it with a move that'll allow you to do that. Magic archers can use, Grand Ascension on corpses, and it'll also heal them until they go away. But again, that's only useful on the big enemies, so like ogres, chimera, dragons, things like that. I can't think of anything else that stays before it decays.
I wonder what's inside.
Small enemies just decay immediately. They don't, or they won't have hitboxes after you kill them. Garm probably have hitboxes, but because they roar, it's harder to do. You could obviously get Ascension off, but that would probably be the extent of it. So the Eliminator can't reach us up here because there's no path for it to walk to that will accomplish that. So we can actually stand here, and even though we're hitting it and we're getting preemption bonus damage every shot, it won't move. The way the enemies work is if there's a path that they can travel upon to reach you, they will. But if that path does not exist, they will just stand there and wait until there's a path. So if I shoot it once, it'll stand there indefinitely. But if I hop down, it'll be like, oh, okay, we have a target, we have a path we can take, and then they'll just start walking towards me. So if I didn't have Lycian Sight, for example, if I'm playing a Strider, or maybe if I'm playing an Assassin, I don't have Lycian Sight, you know, I just can't reach this, I can't shoot them from this far with this effective damage. What I often will do is shoot them so that they start walking towards me, and then hop up before they like fully engage me, and it'll move them closer so I can still do it. Living Armor, that's almost always what I do. I'll just shoot one and then like immediately run and jump on top of that rooftop, because Living Armor move faster than the Eliminators here, because the Eliminators like zigzag down the hill. But Living Armors will like run, and by the time I immediately get on that roof, they're usually like at the opening past that bridgeway. So it makes it very convenient. And you'll still maintain preemption bonus damage. It's lovely. Daimon. This fight is probably as you might expect. We're going to use the bow. We're going to use Fivefold to great effect. But we will use the sword to stack up damage. We're probably going to stand here for a moment to get our stamina back. But basically what we're going to do is Full Moon Slashes and or Great Windmill to stack up the Force Hatchet as safely as we can. And then after that, we're just going to circle around him in a counterclockwise or anti-clockwise rotation, so that we avoid the most dangerous abilities that he has. And by that, I mean his grab attack, as well as the ice spikes that he throws quickly. Because generally, if you're moving to the side, you won't get hit. Those are the two we're afraid of. Everything else we can kind of deal with easily. Let's see how it goes. Alright, that's all 3 stacks. So now it's just a matter of don't get hit. And as I said, we're going to rotate around him counterclockwise. If we're behind him, we don't need to keep rotating, obviously, because he can't hit us with most of those attacks. But
when we're not like directly behind him, this is the way we're gonna rotate. The reason for that is the ice spikes, if you're moving sideways, it's easier to dodge them. We also can full moon slash them, so they're less concerning. That's us just sidestepping, like I said. And then the grab attack will come from his right hand, which is on our left side. So if he starts the grab attack, we can just move away. This move I don't need to rotate around. I just want to be in front of him. At 2.5 health bars missing, he can use Soul Vortex, this move. At 3 health bars missing, he will. If you're really wailing on him, you might do one move first, but he will do it. Fortunately, Mighty Bend staggers him out of it really easily. I believe that if we get hit by the stamina drain, it counts against us in terms of the Force Hatchet buff. But there, we just got some rubble between us, and that was that. If I was smarter, I would have like been a little bit more patient and done slightly less damage and let some of it recover and just shot him with regular arrows that transitioned him right when he was getting to stand back up. But it's not a huge deal. We can always play this second phase more patient. The second phase is less scary. He definitely deals more damage. He has more health, more defenses, but it's a lot easier for us to hit his face because it's now massive and in the middle of his body. And the attacks that he uses are much easier to evade. The attacks in phase 1 are very dangerous. So, I mean, even just with our regular arrows, we're dealing okay damage here. Like, it's not insane. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to oversell it. We're not doing crazy numbers. But for just shooting regular arrows, our damage is great. And that's all thanks to the Force Hatchet, of course. What I generally do is I'll stand about this distance. The reason I want to stand this far away is because if he uses Ingle, it's a distance that I can sidestep by just moving a little bit out of the way. You saw I use Full Moon Slash to evade that move. Iframes are going to keep us from losing our buff. You'll note sometimes I will not even mess around with trying to cut it close with shooting an arrow. This move, he's going to pick either left or right, so if you just stand directly in front of him, you're usually safe. If you're standing super close to him, he might still hit you, but if you're standing at a decent range, he's going to pick left or right. If he does it a second time, he's going to choose the opposite direction of you as last time. So if you change your position, he'll still do the opposite side of you that he did last time. So if he does it to your right the first time, like he did here, he'll do it to your left the second time. That's if he does it back to back. Even if I got behind him and so my original right is now my left, he'll still choose my left the second time anyway. It has less to do with him and more to do with you. Alright, same thing with phase 1, 2.5 health bars, he might do Soul Vortex, 3 health bars he will. He gave us a very good pattern and allowed us to do a lot of extra damage to him. The reason I'm just using regular arrows is because our pawn isn't fully sucked in yet, and I wanted maximum stamina. I was a little bit nervous there because I thought John might disappear if we weren't a little bit faster. But now that we've gotten that, we can just pelt this guy. As you see, our damage is pretty alright. And this is why we were patient with our stamina. We were letting our stamina build up. We don't really care how long it takes us to get to the point where he's using Soul Vortex, so long as when we have him use Soul Vortex, he's full health. Unfortunately there, we lose all of our stamina because we didn't Full Moon Slash that ability. I thought we could kill him before he casted that, and that was literally the one cast. If he had used any other spell, he dies there. But because he chose to use that one, we just we can't evade it fast enough, and we end up getting all of our stamina drained. I am still shooting him just because it does do some damage, probably. You can't really tell. but it's probably doing something. But I'm basically just waiting for the opportunity. And of course, the moment I start stacking the Force Hatchet again, he hits us with that. If we Full Moon Slash that, we can avoid it. But you don't really want to Full Moon Slash size him because you have to then run out of the size him, and it gets dangerous. This is a bit unfortunate. I don't know if I can get him out of this attack. And our damage isn't going to be very good, but fortunately it is good enough. But yeah, so basically everything was smooth, and then he casted the Seism coming out of the first Soul Vortex, and everything went bad from there. Fortunately, it's not a huge problem, because we did so much damage, right? Coming out of his first Soul Vortex, he had, what, 40% of a single health bar? That's pretty satisfying. But a good fight nevertheless. I believe we were not hit by any damage. We got hit by 2 Seisms, and that's it. I'll take it. But at any rate, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the run. Black Cat Weapons run was a lot more fun than I thought. My only wish is that we could do magic damage, because then I would have done it solo. But relying on John only for ghosts and living armor wasn't as bad as I thought. The only time he was really that bad was against the Wraiths in the Forgotten Halls. Or not the Forgotten Halls, the Forsaken Cathedral. But I'll take it. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Be sure to drop a like and a follow. I would appreciate it immensely. I stream Monday through Friday over at twitch.tv/localticobrohe. Be sure to pop in. You all have a good one. Cheers.